Today we are making these fun striped quilt blocks. So these are made entirely using half square triangles. I do have a printable in the shop that you can make this in 5 different sizes. So go ahead and grab that. But the size we're going to make today is a 6-inch size. So you're going to need a square fabric of a background color. This is 3 inches. And then your main color, which is also 3 inches. And then you will need another 2 squares of fabric, a 6-inch square of background fabric, and a 6-inch square of your main color. So let's get started here. On the back side of these half square triangles, we're going to draw some lines here. So what I'm doing here is I am just placing my ruler with the 1/4 inch marking right from corner to corner, and then I'm going to draw along the side. So this is going to give me a stitching line that is 1/4 inch away from the center. And we're going to use this with our other small piece. We're going to make half square triangles. So we're making 2 different sets. So this is the 2 at a time method, and then with these larger squares we will make 8 at a time. So we'll finish this one off first, place them right sides together, and then we will just stitch along these 2 lines. Okay, so we have our fabric sewn, and we're just going to take our ruler here and we will just cut this right in half between those stitching lines, and then we are going to trim these blocks to 2.5 inches. So we're just going to take our quilting square up ruler, we're going to find the 2.5 inch marking on there, and then we will place it right on the seam. And then we will just trim around, and then that will give us a perfect half square triangle. It will be 2.5 inches at this point. Once you sew it into the block, it will be 2 inches. So we'll just trim this other one as well. Okay, so next we are going to grab our ironing mat here, and we are going to press these open. I'm going to place the color side up and the background side facing down. That will make all of our seams face towards the color. Okay, and then we'll just trim off these little tails and we'll have our first 2. Now we need a total of 9 half square triangles for this block. So we're making 2 at a time and 8 at a time, so we will end up having an extra square, but that's okay. Okay, I'm gonna grab my other ruler here so it's long enough to fit on the length of this piece. So we're grabbing our larger square of fabric, and we are doing the same thing where we line up that 1/4 inch marking from corner to corner on the square. Then we will just draw along the side. But we're going to take it a step further for this one. We're going to do those lines on the opposite corners as well. So we will end up with 4 stitching lines on the square of fabric. Okay, so we will take our color, our blue, we'll place our white right on top with right sides together, and then we will go stitch along all 4 of these lines. Okay, we will take our cutting mat here. We've got all of our lines sewn. We're just going to place it on here. We're going to be cutting this in half vertically and horizontally, as well as diagonally in both directions. So I'm just going to take my ruler here. I like to line up the edge of the ruler with the 2 points, like where the seams meet. So like right here and right here. So I line up the one side with that, and then I check the other side and make sure that it's lining up straight and I'm not crooked, so that my half square triangles end up straight. So we'll just go ahead and cut that way, and I try not to move it until I'm done, but I wasn't successful right then. But we'll just line it up this way. We'll line up this edge of the ruler with those seams where they connect, and then just double check that the line is straight on the other side. I like to do the vertical and horizontal first, because if these get moved around, you can always just do them singly by themselves, because you can just go from corner to corner on one single square instead of all of them if you'd like to. So we'll just do that both ways. Just cut right between those seams. And then we will have 8 half square triangles. So once again, we will trim them up to 2.5. So just real quickly, we'll line up that 2.5 inch mark on the ruler with the seam, and then we trim around the outside. Okay, then we will just take all of our half square triangles and press them open again with the color facing upward so that all of the seams face towards the color. Okay, and then we will just trim the tails. Okay, so we have our half square triangles. We only need 9, so we will have an extra that we can set aside for another time. Let's just go ahead and lay out our block. I like to start with the color facing to the top and to the left. And then we're just going to arrange them so that we create stripes. So I just don't really have a method. I just rotate them until they are creating the stripes. So you're going to want 3 across and 3 down. Just like this. And then we will take these over to the sewing machine and we will stitch them like a 9 patch. So I'm going to take the top 3, make a row with these by placing them right sides together, stitching, then we'll add this one, right sides together and stitch, and we'll do that with each of the rows. Okay, so we have our rows sewn. So the next thing we're going to do is we're pressing these. Okay, so we have our 3 rows here. So the top and bottom are pressed towards the middle. Sometimes those seams where they meet up, you don't want to lay flat, but press towards the middle. The middle block is pressed outward. And then we're going to take these over to the sewing machine and we'll stitch them. We'll place them right sides together. And when we go to the sewing machine, we're going to make sure that we nest these seams. This is why we're careful about the direction that we press them. As long as the middle is the opposite as the outer edges, then they will nest. So you can see the seam. There's a left seam and a right seam, and so these will butt up nicely against each other and make good points when we stitch it together. Okay, so we have our block done, and then the last thing we need to do is just press it flat. So I'm just taking it and I'm just pressing the seams. It doesn't really matter the direction at this point. But you'll just press it nice and flat, and then you have your little striped quilt block. So that is how you make the striped quilt block using just half square triangles. So it's a fun block to make, so go ahead and grab that printable in the shop if you'd like to make it. Not only is there the 6-inch size that we just made, but there's a 9, there's a 12, a 15, or an 18-inch size quilt block.